Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Senator Franken and Congressman Conyers aren't the only prominent Democrats to be embroiled in sexual harassment scandals. For decades, multiple women have accused former President Bill Clinton of serious sexual misconduct, including rape. Now some Democrats are finally speaking out against Bill Clinton's pattern of abuse, including former senior advisor to President Obama, David Axelrod. Watch this.
You know, I was arguing with a friend who said, how can people have voted for Donald Trump after that Access Hollywood tape? And I had to be honest, and I said, look, I voted for Bill Clinton twice. And I think he was a really fine president, a brilliant guy, committed public servant. But I knew, I mean, everyone in politics knew about his behavior, and we looked the other way. And I think there's a lot of soul searching to be done.
Shocking revelation, and many believe that Bill Clinton's history of sexual misconduct and the subsequent cover-ups may have played a role in his wife's brutal 2016 defeat. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, still promoting her book, What Happened, said that no one in the Democratic Party has sought out her advice for the 2020 presidential election. I wonder why. Watch this.
Has anyone been to see you yet? I think Kamala Harris may have been to see you. Anyone else?
Nobody's actually been to see me. I see Democrats all the time, and nobody has said, hey, I'm going to run, or I'm thinking about running, give me advice now, because it is too soon. And there may be some private planning going on by some people. I wouldn't know who. I wouldn't hazard a guess. But in terms of actually seeking out advice, you know, people have said, hey, I want to come talk to you, but I haven't had those conversations in large measure because I said I'm going to focus next year on 2018, and then, you know, I'll be happy to talk.
Joining us now with reaction is radio talk show host Gina Loudon and former Clinton pollster and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Thank you both for being here with me tonight. So obviously there's a very heated current climate of sexual misconduct, sexual harassment. There's allegations, and it's going across the board. Do you think we're going to start to see more and more Democrats distance themselves from Bill and Hillary Clinton in light of this?
Well, look, Kimberly, my sense is that with Bill Clinton, many of the allegations have already been litigated. They have been dealt with in an impeachment process or in court. You know, to me, if they're new allegations, fine, let's deal with them. But to go back 20 years to relitigate or earlier, I just think is a waste of time and energy. I would say this. If you want to talk about Uranium One, if you want to talk about the dossier, there are a lot of unanswered questions there that I think merit our time. But to go relitigate what Bill Clinton may or may not have done, you know, I don't think that's worthwhile. Just one other point.
Yes.
I worked for Bill Clinton from 94 to 2000. And what David Axelrod says, and he's a dear friend of mine, but what he says everyone knew. I didn't know. The revelations about Monica Lewinsky were news to me when they came out.
Okay, but there were also, and see if Gina, you can hear us now. That, you know,
yes, I hear you.
People were aware of what went on, and I understand about not relitigating or going the past. However, as a former prosecutor, when a crime has been committed, I don't look the other way just because of the passage of time. To me, when there's allegations of, you know, sexual misconduct, not just harassment, but, you know, rape, as in the case of Juanita Broaddrick, which she has made that claim against, you know, the president, you know, shouldn't that be addressed? And what about the Democrats, like, owning up to that in terms of the double standard that they've seemed to have as of late?
Well, of course they have a double standard, Kimberly, because if they didn't have a double standard, they wouldn't have any standards at all. This is a transparent attempt on the part of the Democrat Party, now that a Clinton will never be on a ballot again, for them to claim some sort of sexual purity. This, the party of Clinton, of Weiner, of Franken, and we're supposed to fall for that? They must think voters are really stupid if they're going to fall for the Democrat Party now being the party. And just like you said, where's the apology to these women that they smeared for all these years? If they knew this was going on, why did they go along with it?
Yeah, no, she makes a great point. I mean, when you see people that have been savaged in the press, in the media, and by quite frankly, to Hillary Clinton herself, it's very disturbing. And I mean, do you think it played a role in the fact that she was, defeated in 2016?
It may well have played a role, but I think the person people voted against, for a lot of very good reasons, was Secretary Hillary Clinton. I think if she'd listened to Bill Clinton, campaigned more in the Midwest, focused on working class voters, talked about jobs, she would have done a lot better than she did trying to mimic the Obama campaign from 2008 and 2012. And, you mentioned Juanita Broaddrick. As a prosecutor, you surely would know that when there are multiple stories, multiple accounts of what happened in an event, it's a much tougher case to litigate when the person who allegedly was violated has told different stories at different times.
Okay, well, she maintains that she also gave what's called a fresh complaint at the time. She complained of it. She had the physical injury to the lip that he said, put some ice on that. Look, I mean, the bottom line is not just Bill Clinton. What Hillary Clinton did was wrong in the way that she treated those women and then expected that she was going to go on to be, president of the United States, given her abhorrent behavior.
Yeah, the way to have done this with any legitimacy, Kimberly, would have been for the Democrat Party to come out as a party and apologize to these women. If they're so concerned about the long-term, the post-traumatic stress of women who go through these sorts of things, as they say every day, right, whenever they can get in the news, trying to take some moral high ground now, then they should be concerned about the fact that these women are still traumatized by what happened to them under that administration. And they've been continually traumatized as all of their allegations have been swept over under the rug for all of these years. And it's just too convenient a time now for them to come out and say, oh, wait a minute, we are the party of sexual purity suddenly. The public isn't going to buy this.
Okay, now, in an earlier segment, Doug, you and I were talking about this through the break. Yeah. Geraldo Rivera was on, good friend here, and he was seeming to kind of give a pass by saying, well, wait a second, Conyers is older, so what if he had the meeting essentially in his underwear? I'm sure it wasn't, sexual in nature, but just because he doesn't look like David Beckham in his underwear, then it's okay to do that?
Look, I got a different view of this, Kimberly. This is a real-time, real-world event. Let's let the Ethics Committee investigate, and if the facts are as compromising as you're now suggesting and many reports have suggested, I'm not sure there's a place for him in the House. I'm not sure there's a place for Al Franken. Right. And the reports about Joe Barton, I think on the Republican side, also merit investigation by the Ethics Committee. Put another way, I think we need to be nonpartisan about it, not try to cast one party or the other party as the party of sex. If it happens and it's egregious, as these incidents suggest may have occurred, let's investigate and take the appropriate action.
Yes, regardless of partisan politics, it should have the same standard and the same due process, Gina, for either side.
Correct.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and there's a really important psychological component too for these women. I think as we're going through this process, that they are validated, that they know that some of these things have been investigated. But we also need to be very careful as a public to make sure that we make the distinction, I guess, between evidence and facts versus feelings and allegations, because there is a distinct difference, and we can't keep meshing them together like the Democrat Party seems to want to do a lot of times.
To me, this isn't partisan, Kimberly. I think you're exactly right. I think, though, Gina makes a very good point. We need to investigate allegations, see the full totality of what did or didn't happen, and make judgments there. We can't rush to judgment based on partial press reports that are not in any way full accounts of what did or didn't happen.
No, you bring up a great point, and the problem is also with the passage of time, Gina, when you see in a situation like the Roy Moore case, where there's a period of behavior that's been alleged over a very long period of time, it makes it very tough to go back to be able to examine the veracity of it and get those statements. It's not something that can happen, overnight to be able to figure it out. It should be taken very seriously, like I said, on all sides.
Yes, it should be taken seriously, but it shouldn't be tried, as you both know, in the court of public opinion. And I think we insult the public, frankly, when television pundits or the media decides in general that it can try this, itself and decide that all of a sudden now this election should be overturned for an entire state. I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set, and I think that you'd see massive public outrage if something like that were to actually happen. I think it needs to be adjudicated.
Very simply, we're going to have an election in Alabama on December 12th.
Yeah.
The people will be able to decide what they want to believe, what they don't want to believe, and I hope the Senate seats the winner of that election, whoever it may be.
And then if there's an investigation that needs to continue, of course, so be it, with due process and evidence that is proffered and evaluated, so we can also make some kind of distinguishing factors in terms of the spectrum of statements, and then also sexual misconduct or sexual assault, which is criminal in nature and should be prosecuted if appropriate and relevant. Such a pleasure to have you both
Couldn't
here
agree
tonight.
more, Kimberly.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina and Doug.
Thank you.
Coming up, the mainstream media has been covering up Democratic scandals for years. Well, we'll show you one new shocking example next. Don't go away.